They served me during the all-hands meeting in the 40th floor glass atrium in front of my entire team. "You stole the $3.4 million inheritance," their lawyer announced, captured by the conference mic. What they didn't know, I am the head of compliance, and I was the one who invited the camera crew. This wasn't just a meeting. Today, I am returning what they gave me at 4 months old: abandonment. My name is Rowan Hale. I am 29 years old, and I am the head of global compliance for Norcrest Dynamics. The 40th floor atrium at Norcrest headquarters is designed to communicate transparency, which is corporate code for intimidation. It's a cathedral of glass and brushed steel, overlooking the Grayford skyline. The white LED panels in the ceiling are calibrated to a brightness that mimics daylight, ensuring no one ever feels the comfort of dusk. It keeps the senses sharp, agitated. It keeps people productive. Today, it was the stage for our quarterly all-hands town hall. I was mid-presentation. My topic? Q3. Audits, FCPA stress tests, and vendor chain integrity. It was dry, necessary, and exactly the kind of data-driven monologue I excelled at. My voice was measured, projecting perfectly through the discrete microphones on the podium. And, as you can see from the data ingestion analysis of our Singapore branch, I was saying, gesturing to a complex flowchart on the 80-inch screen. Our new verification protocols have reduced onboarding friction by 12%, while simultaneously flagging. The heavy glass doors at the back of the atrium hissed open, breaking the conditioned silence. Movement in an all-hands meeting is a disruption, a violation of protocol. My eyes snapped from the screen to the entrance. Security protocols dictate that non-badged guests are held at reception. Security did not intervene. This was, therefore, an approved interruption or a catastrophic failure. My assessment took less than a second. 2 people, 1 man, 1 woman, walking with the hesitant, wide-eyed shuffle of those unaccustomed to corporate wealth. They were flanked by a 3rd man in a better suit. Sharp, aggressive, carrying a thick leather portfolio. I didn't need the shoebox of faded Polaroids my grandfather kept in his desk to recognize them. I had cross-referenced those images with state DMV records years ago. Alden Hale and Dana Cole, my biological parents. The man, Alden, wore a polyester blend suit that strained across his soft middle. He was trying to look imposing but just looked winded from the elevator ride. The woman, Dana, clung to his arm. Her eyes, the same shape as mine, darted everywhere, at the glass walls, the focused employees, the digital ticker displaying Norcrest stock prices. They looked like tourists who had wandered into a secure facility. The man in the better suit stepped forward. He was the vector. They marched down the central aisle. The hum of the HVAC system seemed to grow louder as 200 employees turned, one by one, to watch the intrusion. The internal camera operator, streaming this to our Dallas and Tokyo offices, dutifully panned to follow them. I did not move. I kept one hand on the podium, my thumb resting on the pulse monitor built into the biometric scanner. My heart rate was 62 beats per minute. Steady. They stopped directly in front of my podium. The lawyer, the one with the aggressive posture, smiled. It was a thin, predatory expression. "Rowan Hale?" he asked, though it wasn't a question. I inclined my head. "I am?" "My name is Marcus Thorne," he said, loud enough for the podium mic to catch every syllable, broadcasting it to the entire company. "I represent Mr. Alden Hale and Miss Dana Cole in the matter of the estate of Walter Quinn." Behind me, the flowchart on the screen seemed to freeze. I could feel the collective focus of the room narrow to a single point. Thorne slid a thick stack of documents from his portfolio. He didn't hand them to me. He slid them, forcefully, across the polished oak of the podium. The sound of cheap paper scraping expensive wood was louder than a gunshot in the sterile room. "You are hereby served," Thorne declared, his voice booming with rehearsed indignation. I looked down. The top sheet was a civil summons. My name was in bold, aggressive font, Rowan Hale, and below it, the reason: contestation of will, undue influence, and fraudulent deprivation of inheritance. A number, printed in the damages section, was clearly visible even from the front row. $400,000. A wave of sound rippled through the room, a collective gasp, followed by the electric buzz of whispering. People weren't just looking anymore, they were staring. Phones, previously muted and face down on the tables per my own compliance policy, were suddenly being angled for discrete videos. The live stream camera zoomed in, catching the documents, then my face. I looked at Alden. He was staring at the floor, breathing heavily. Dana was looking at me, her expression a toxic mix of desperation and what she probably thought was maternal righteousness. They had planned this, the public venue, the all-hands meeting, the interruption of my professional life. They wanted shame. They wanted leverage. They wanted a reaction. I gave them procedure. I did not touch the papers. I looked directly at Mr. Thorne, bypassing the two ghosts standing beside him. "Mr. Thorne," I said. My voice was perfectly flat. The microphone picked it up without a tremor. Norcrest Dynamics corporate policy, as outlined in our legal governance framework, stipulates that all service of process for any employee, officer, or director must be routed through the office of the General Counsel, located on the 41st floor, Suite 4150. I paused, letting the clinical language hang in the air. "You have bypassed reception, security, and protocol." I continued, my tone shifting from informational to icy. "This interruption of a mandatory corporate town hall is a violation of Norcrest visitor policy. You are, officially, trespassing." Thorne's smile faltered. He had expected tears, or yelling. He had not expected the bylaws. "This is a personal matter," he snapped, trying to regain control. "You made it a corporate one when you served it in front of my team and our shareholders," I countered. The whispering intensified. "Did he say 3.4 million? Who are they? That's Rowan? Her parents?" The camera operator, sensing the shift, panned slightly. Catching my expression, I offered nothing. My face was a mask of professional neutrality. I am head of compliance. My job is to remain calm while the building burns, and to identify the arsonist. I looked past Thorne, past the ghosts, to my head of security, Mike, who was now standing by the door, his hand on his earpiece, waiting for my signal. I gave a subtle shake of my head. Not yet. I turned back to the audience. "Please excuse the interruption, team," I said calmly. "It seems we have an unscheduled item on the agenda." My hand, the one that had been resting on the podium, moved to the wireless clicker. My thumb found the next button. On the 80-inch screen, the complex flowchart of Q3 vendor audits vanished. It was replaced by a clean white slide. The text was black, simple, and stark. It read, "Agenda Item 2, Conflict Disclosure and Related Party Transactions." A different kind of silence fell. This was not the silence of shock. This was the silence of confusion, rapidly turning into clinical interest. My team recognized this language. This was my language. I turned my body slightly, addressing the room, but projecting my voice so Thorne and his clients could not miss a word. In compliance, we operate on a single principle: trust. But verify. We prepare for all contingencies. We identify risks before they become liabilities. I finally looked down at the summons, then back at the intruders. "A conflict of interest arises when personal relationships," I said, my gaze landing on Dana, "or financial incentives," my gaze shifted to Alden, "threaten to compromise professional judgment or corporate integrity." From that precise second, this ceased to be their ambush. It became my presentation. They had brought their poorly planned attack onto my home turf, into the very room where I defined corporate ethics. In my left blazer pocket, my fingers found the cool, sharp edge of a small object, a red USB drive. It was plain, unencrypted, and contained the only part of my grandfather's legacy they had never known about, had never been able to touch. It was his final directive, his last audit. The lawyer, Thorne, sensed the dynamic shifting. He started to speak. Now, see here. You can't just. I held up one hand. The gesture was not aggressive. It was absolute. He stopped talking. I looked out at the faces of my colleagues, the analysts, the auditors, the legal team, all watching, rapt. I looked at the red recording light on the live stream camera. The entire global division was watching. I let the silence stretch, filling the glass room until it was taut. Then, I looked directly at the two people who had left me at a gas station 29 years ago. "You've raised an interesting point about the Quinn estate," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "So, shall we discuss conflicts of interest?" I stand motionless, letting his accusation, "You stole the 3.4 million inheritance," reverberate in the glass atrium. Mr. Thorne, the lawyer, is panting slightly, high on his own theatricality. Alden Hale and Dana Cole stand beside him, a matched set of calculated desperation. They are strangers, ghosts from a file, yet I know them in fragments, in sense memories that exist beneath the layers of my conscious mind. I don't have a memory of them. I have a memory of the Braxton Turnpike. It's not a narrative, it's a sensory file. The sound of heavy rain drumming on a metal roof, the distorted, greasy glow of a red neon gas sign, its light bleeding across a rain-lashed windshield, and the smell. It's the sharpest part, the acrid bite of gasoline mixed with something cloyingly sweet, spoiled milk formula, congealing in a bottle. The police report fills in the details my 4-month-old brain could not process. Infant, female, approx. 4 months, left in carrier on floor of men's restroom, discovered by trucker, 03:15 hours. In the boardroom, under the sterile white LEDs, Dana Cole begins to cry. They are soft, practiced tears, designed to elicit sympathy. She dabs at her eye, careful not to smudge her makeup. She is looking at me, pleadingly, as if we share a history. We share a gas station restroom. Tucked into the thin vinyl lining of the carrier, the police found a note. It was a single page torn from a spiral notebook, the blue lines blurred by damp. It read, simply, "We can't. Not we're sorry, not forgive us, just a declaration of incompetence, a waiver of responsibility." They couldn't. I look at them now, at the shiny, ill-fitting suit on Alden, the faux leather handbag Dana grips like a shield. They couldn't then, but now, with 3.4 million in probate, it seems they can. Walter Quinn could. He was my grandfather, Dana's estranged father. The state found him 6 days after the gas station. He was 58, a widower, and a senior actuary. He was a man of numbers, discipline, and profound, quiet integrity. He drove to the county social services building, looked at the infant the nurse was holding, and, as the story was told to me, he merely adjusted his glasses. He didn't coo. He didn't weep. He said to the social worker, "The child requires stabilization. I can provide it." He didn't just provide it. He legally adopted me, and in doing so, he legally terminated their parental rights. They signed the papers. They took the state's minimal relocation stipend and vanished. My childhood was not soft. Walter Quinn did not read me fairy tales. He read me bond prospectuses. He didn't know how to play pretend, but he knew how to build a foundation. "We don't guess. Rowan," he'd say, dumping a heavy jar of coins onto the worn kitchen table. The house always smelled of old books and the faint, sweet scent of the apple orchard out back. "We count, we verify." I learned to balance his checkbook before I learned to ride a bike. He'd bring home redacted payroll ledgers from his firm. Where did the money go? "Rowan, follow it. Every dollar has a story. Every transaction leaves a footprint." I am the head of compliance at Norcrest Dynamics, because Walter Quinn trained me for it since I was 6. We have only one photograph where we are both truly happy. I am 3. He is holding me on his hip, standing in the orchard. The sunlight is hitting his glasses, and he is captured mid-laugh, a rare barking sound, because my tiny fist is bunched up, having just successfully stolen his spectacles off his face. I look at the man in my boardroom, Alden, the man who shares my DNA. He is glaring at me, his face puffed with a righteousness he hasn't earned. He sees an obstacle. He doesn't see the hours Walter spent teaching me the fiduciary duty of care. The lawsuit claims undue influence. It claims I took advantage of a man in cognitive decline. Walter's decline was not cognitive, it was physical, Parkinson's. It came on slowly, an unwelcome auditor. It started in his hands, the tremor. I remember the first check he tried to write to the power company after the diagnosis truly set in. His signature, once a sharp, angular piece of calligraphy, was skewed, the Walter dragging downward. He stared at it for a full minute, his hand shaking, his face a mask of cold fury. "The instrument is compromised," he whispered. He was disgusted, not scared, disgusted. The next day, he took me to his lawyer. I was 24, already working in the audit department at Norcrest. "Power of attorney," he stated. "Full, medical, and financial." He made me practice his signature. "No," he'd snap, his own hand vibrating with frustration. "The Q is too round. It looks hesitant. Be decisive." I learned to sign his name, not as an act of forgery, but as an act of authorization, an extension of his will. The lawsuit calls this fraud. Walter called it succession planning. He died last fall, on a clear October morning. The apple trees were heavy with fruit. It was peaceful. He left me everything, the small cabin, the orchard, the investment accounts he had managed with actuarial precision, and his minority stake in Norcrest Dynamics, purchased in 1982, now worth a substantial sum. The total? $3.4 million. He also left me his ledgers, his private ledgers, 12 green, hardbound books, in them, in handwriting that went from precise to shaky over the decades. He had recorded everything, every expense related to my adoption, every dollar he had ever given Dana, long before I was born, with notations like loan, unpaid. He documented his life. He documented their failure. I did not put those ledgers in a drawer. I had them professionally digitized, hashed, and the originals placed in a climate-controlled bank vault. I am my grandfather's student. I verify. I never contacted them. In 29 years, they never contacted me. They were a closed file, an entry in a logbook, a bad debt written off. Until probate. The moment the $3.4 million estate was publicly filed, the ghosts walked out of the fog. The taillights that had vanished on the Braxton Turnpike reappeared, driving straight at me. And now they are here, in my room, in front of my team. "This is an outrage!" Thorne, the lawyer, shouts, finally finding his voice. He stabs a finger at me. "You isolated that poor old man. You poisoned him against his real family." His real family? The words hang in the air, vibrating with their own absurdity. The 200 people in this room, the hundreds more watching on the live stream, are frozen. The camera is locked on my face, waiting for me to crack. I feel the smooth, cool plastic of the red USB drive in my pocket. Walter's final contingency plan. I look at Thorne. I look at Dana. I look at Alden. "An interesting allegation," I say, my voice cutting through the manufactured drama. I pick up the clicker from the podium. It suggests a pattern of behavior. It suggests a willingness to manipulate the truth for financial gain. My thumb presses the next button. The slide Conflict Disclosure vanishes. The new slide appears. It is a screenshot of a newly approved vendor application for Norcrest Dynamics. "Which brings me," I say, my voice dropping to the ice-cold monotone of a final audit, "to Quinfield Services, a new contractor application that crossed my desk 72 hours ago. An application filed. Mr. Hale, in your name." The slide on the 80-inch screen glows. Quinfield Services. In the atrium, you could hear a stock ticker fall. The whispers stop. The shuffling stops. Even the air conditioning seems to pause. The entire building holding its breath. Alden Hale's face, which had been puffed with indignation, deflates. His eyes dart from the screen to his lawyer. Thorn. Dana Cole's practiced tears freeze on her cheeks. She just looks confused. Thorn is the first to recover, but his voice has lost its boom. It's tight, reedy. What is this? This is irrelevant. We are here about the estate. You are here, I interrupt, my voice amplified by the podium mic, because you believe you are owed money. It seems you decided to hedge your bets. $3.4 million from the estate, and I tap the slide. Another $2.2 million annually from my company. A new wave of gasps, much sharper this time. This is no longer family drama. This is a number with a million attached, and it belongs to Norcrest Dynamics. My world isn't flashy. We don't make apps or social media platforms. Norcrest Dynamics is the plumbing of the American agricultural system. We manage the data infrastructure, the logistical software, the cold storage sensors, the satellite data analysis that tells farmers when to plant, tells distributors where to ship, and tells the federal government where to send subsidy checks. We are, therefore, a high-compliance risk entity. When your clients are federal agencies and your data impacts national food security, the rulebook is thick. My job, as head of global compliance, is to enforce it. I am the guardian of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, FCPA. I monitor contractor cash flows. I am the final checkpoint for every high-value vendor file, every invoice for over $50,000, every consultant, every third-party agent, eventually crosses my desk, digitally or physically. I am the corporate immune system. I live on a diet of data points, red flags, and suspicion. 4 days ago, a new vendor file hit my priority queue. Quinn Field Services. The name stopped me. Not just for the obvious reason. Walter Quinn was an actuary, not a refrigeration technician. The name was a trigger, a piece of data that didn't fit the pattern. It was an emotional anomaly. And in my line of work, emotion is just an indicator of risk. I opened the file. The contract was for cryogenic systems maintenance for our data hubs in the Midwest. A new, lucrative contract. The address was a PEO box in Wilmington, Delaware, a classic shell company indicator. I ran the corporate registration. This is what I do. It's as natural as breathing. The search didn't take long. Quinn Field Services was a single-member LLC, formed 6 weeks ago. Its sole member was another LLC. Prairie Land Solutions, LLC. Prairie Land was, in turn, owned by Midwest Strategic Holdings, LLC. A 3-layer shell, designed to obscure ownership. It's lazy. It's the kind of structure someone who thinks they are clever creates. I ran the incorporation papers for the parent company, Midwest Strategic Holdings, and there it was, the registered agent, the signatory on the formation documents. Alden Hale, my biological father. My pulse didn't quicken. It became cold, heavy. This was not a coincidence. This was an ambush. I cross-referenced the timestamps. The internal procurement team at Norcrest had fast-tracked the approval. The final e-signature was affixed to the contract 72 hours ago. Then, I checked the public court database. The lawsuit against me, the one Thorn was now holding, was filed 71 hours ago. The smell of financial manipulation was overwhelming. This wasn't just a probate fight. This was a coordinated, two-front attack. They would sue me personally, claiming I stole from a vulnerable old man, creating public and professional shame. Simultaneously, they would use a shell company, named after the man they claimed to be defending, to siphon millions directly from the corporation I was paid to protect. It was bold, it was arrogant, and it was incredibly, profoundly stupid. They had brought their fraud directly to the one person on Earth genetically and professionally, engineered to find it. They had tried to rob the compliance auditor. I clicked my mouse. The slide on the screen changed to a complex, color-coded flowchart. My department flagged Quinn Field Services for anomalies in its bidding process, I announced to the room. Alden flinches at the word flagged. As head of compliance, I continue, my tone shifting into the one I use for board investigations, I immediately opened an enhanced due diligence task, citing multiple red flags, specifically, potential undisclosed related party transaction and anomalous shell corporation structure. I am speaking to the room, to my team, to the executives, but I am staring at Alden, Dana, and Thorne. You see, Mr. Thorne, I say, your clients didn't just sue me. They committed an act of spectacular poor judgment. They tried to defraud my company. They brought their dirt into my house. Thorne's face is white. He's a probate lawyer. He deals in wills and weeping relatives. He is not equipped for this. This is FCPA territory. This is federal contract fraud. This is slander, Thorne yells, finding a new script. You are trying to deflect from the real crime, the theft of this poor family's inheritance. Am I? I ask. Let's review the timeline. 72 hours ago, Quinfield Services, owned by Alden Hale, secures a $2.2 million contract from Norcrest. 71 hours ago, Alden Hale and Dana Cole file a $3.4 million lawsuit against me. This is not a coincidence. This is a conspiracy. I continue, relentless. The moment I identified this, I did two things. First, I escalated the vendor investigation. Second, I contacted our general counsel and placed a mandatory, non-deletable legal hold on all corporate communications pertaining to this matter. I let that sink in. I am explaining my job to them, and in doing so, I am showing them the bars of the cage they built for themselves. A legal hold, for those of you not in compliance, I say to the wider audience, means that every email, every instant message, every access log, and every draft document related to Quinfield Services, Alden Hale, or Dana Cole is now preserved as evidence. Nothing can be deleted. Nothing can be hidden. I see a tremor in Alden's hand. He's looking for an exit, but the doors are at the back of the atrium, and I am at the front. And then, I say, I did a third thing. This quarterly town hall was originally scheduled as a simple webinar. I personally requested it be moved to this atrium. I requested the expanded attendance, the live stream, and the external camera crew. I look at the red light on the camera, then back at them. The public reason was supply chain transparency, a routine corporate update. I take a step away from the podium, standing free, the red USB drive a comforting weight in my pocket. The real reason, Mr. Hale, is that I knew you were coming. I knew you planned this public ambush, and I will not have my grandfather's name or my professional integrity questioned. I pause. The silence is absolute. You wanted a stage. Gentlemen, you wanted an audience. I gesture to the camera, to the 200 employees, to the executives in the front row. I let my statement, "Welcome to the audit," settle over the room. The glass walls of the atrium seem to press inward, the silence amplifying the harsh, white light. Thorne, the lawyer, is a caricature of outrage. He's all bluster, but his eyes are calculating. He sees his narrative slipping, so he reverts to the emotional script he prepared. "This is a distraction," he proclaims, his voice rising again, desperate to regain the offensive. A cynical corporate ploy to cover up the real crime, the manipulation of a vulnerable, elderly man. He taps the thick summons in his hand, the one still sitting on my podium. This lawsuit states, with evidence, that Ms. Hale systematically isolated Walter Quinn. It alleges she used her position of trust, her power of attorney, to coerce him into signing a new will while he was suffering from severe dementia. She poisoned him against his only child, Dana, and her husband, Alden. She stole their legacy. Their legacy. The complaint demands the will be nullified, Thorne continues, and that the estate pass, as it should by law, to his next of kin, his daughter. Dana produces a sound that is half sob, half choke. It's perfectly timed. Alden puts a protective arm around her. It's a beautifully blocked scene. They are the victims. I am the predator. I wait for the performance to conclude. You've raised several points. Mr. Thorne, I say, my voice cutting through the manufactured grief. All of them are fictions. Let's deconstruct your complaint, shall we? Point by point. I pick up the wireless clicker, the slide on the screen changes. It's no longer the flowchart. It's a simple text slide. Contestation point 1. Cognitive capacity. Your lawsuit, I state, is predicated on the claim that Walter Quinn lacked the mental capacity to execute his final will. You use the word dementia. You paint a picture of a man who didn't know what he was doing. I look at Dana. He knew exactly what he was doing. Click, a new slide. This one is a document, redacted for proprietary medical information, but the crucial parts are highlighted. It's a letterhead from the Grayford Neurological Institute. This is the summary report from Walter Quinn's full neuropsychological evaluation. I explain, my voice cold and academic. It was conducted by Dr. Aris Thorne. No relation, I assume. The date of the exam is 2 days prior to the signing of the final will. I'll read the conclusion for you. I lean toward the microphone. Patient Walter Quinn, while exhibiting significant motor function decline consistent with Parkinson's disease, shows no signs of cognitive impairment or memory loss. His executive function, reasoning, and comprehension are fully intact. He is assessed as having full and complete testamentary capacity. A low murmur snakes through the room. A legal pillar of their entire case has just evaporated. His hands were weak. Mr. Thorne, I say. His mind was not. He was the sharpest man in any room he occupied, right up until his last breath. But you wouldn't know that. You weren't there. Dana's sob hitches. Alden's face darkens. Thorne shuffles his papers, rattled. That's one doctor. We will dispute that finding, and it doesn't change the undue influence. He fumbles in his briefcase and pulls out an object. It's a cheap 5x7 frame. He holds it up, angling it toward the camera, toward the executives. Does this look like a woman who would be cut out of a will? This is Dana, with her father, before you came along. It's a poor quality photo, grainy and old, but then Alden steps forward, holding something else. It's a photograph of me. It's one of the few from the shoebox. I'm a baby, maybe a year old, sitting on a worn carpet. I have huge, dark eyes, and I'm wearing a faded yellow onesie. It's a picture I've seen 1,000 times. This, Alden says, his voice thick with false emotion, is the girl Walter took, the girl we lost. We just wanted to know our daughter. They are trying to pivot. From the failed dementia claim to an emotional plea, they are painting themselves as grieving parents, shut out by a cold, unfeeling granddaughter who was turned against them. I look at the picture. I look at them. I look at the camera. You're right, I say. That picture is important. It establishes a time frame for the single most important legal document in this entire case, and it's not the will. I look directly at the lawyer. Thorne, I assume, in your haste to file this lucrative lawsuit, you performed a full record search at the Grayford County Courthouse? Thorne stares at me, his confidence wavering. Of course, we are thorough. Then you must have found it, I say. The other major legal action associated with Walter Quinn and Rowan Hale, the one that predates the will by 28 years. Click, the slide changes. Contestation point 2. Legal standing, next of kin. Let's talk about that year. Mr. Hale, I say. The year you left a 4-month-old infant at the Braxton Turnpike gas station, you left a note. We can't? You were right. You couldn't. So Walter Quinn, the man you now accuse of being incompetent, stepped in. He did what you were unable or unwilling to do. He provided. But Walter was a man of compliance, I continue, the words sharp and precise. He was an actuary. He did not believe in half measures or ambiguous risks. He demanded permanence. He demanded security. For me. Click, a new document fills the screen. It is a scan of an old typewritten court order. The seal of the state of Ohio is visible at the top. This, I announce to the room, is the final, irrevocable judgment from the Court of Common Pleas, dated August 14, 1996. It is a termination of parental rights. The silence in the room is absolute. It is a vacuum. It is signed by Judge Marcus Adler, And here, I click again, zooming in on the signature block at the bottom. It is signed by Alden Hale, and here, by Dana Cole. Dana makes a small, wounded sound, as if she's been struck. It's the first genuine sound I've ever heard from her. I turn to the lawyer, who looks like he's been electrocuted. They signed it, Mr. Thorne. They willingly, and for a minor financial consideration from the state, relinquished all legal rights, responsibilities, and claims to the child known as Rowan Hale. They terminated their status. They severed the branch. I let the legal implication land on him, on the room, on the global live stream. This document means they are not next of kin. They are not his daughter or his family in the eyes of the law. They have no more legal standing to contest Walter Quinn's will than any one of you in this room. I lean in, my voice dropping, but the mic catches every syllable. They are, legally speaking, strangers, and strangers do not have standing to sue for an inheritance they abandoned 29 years ago. Thorne is apoplectic. This is inadmissible. It's a separate matter. It is the only matter, I counter. Your entire case is built on the lie that they are the rightful heirs. This judgment proves they are not. Your lawsuit is frivolous. It is dead on arrival. You have filed a suit with no plaintiff. I look at them, the three of them, clustered together, suddenly looking small in the vast, bright room. But my grandfather knew you. He knew your character. He anticipated this day. He was, as I said, a man of compliance. He believed in documentation. I gesture to the podium. Mr. Thorne, your complaint alleges isolation and manipulation, but Walter Quinn left one final directive, a sealed codicil to his will, entrusted to his attorney. It contained a simple instruction. Click. The slide changes. Codicil. Sealed. Activation clause. The codicil was to be activated only in the event of a legal challenge to the will, filed specifically by Alden Hale or Dana Cole. I look at them. By filing this suit, you have triggered my grandfather's final audit. In my pocket, my fingers close around the red USB drive. He knew you would come back, he knew you would lie, and he knew you would do it publicly, so he prepared a response, a video certification of his will, to be played in just such an event. You came here today to put on a show, I say. You served papers in my all-hands meeting. You brought a picture of me as a baby. You wanted leverage. You wanted to play this game on your terms. I take a step back and gesture to the screen, the lawyers, the camera. But you didn't. You're not on your turf. You are on mine. You brought a personal grievance into a corporate environment. You brought a fraudulent claim onto the home court of the head of compliance. I look at the Norcrest General Counsel, seated in the front row, who is watching with a cold, focused intensity. He nods, almost imperceptibly. He understands. Which brings us back to the present, I say, my voice ringing with finality. I click the button one last time. The screen flashes, replacing the legal documents with the flowchart from my original presentation. But the title is new. It's sharp, red, and damning. Related party transactions. Potential fraud indicators. The entire room goes silent. The personal case is dead. The corporate one is just beginning. The red text. Related party transactions. Potential fraud indicators. Hangs on the 80-inch screen. It is an accusation. But it sounds like a line item from a textbook. That is my job. To drain the passion from a crisis and leave only the data. I turn from the screen and look at the three people who have become the focal point of 200 employees and one live stream camera. Mr. Thorne, I say, my voice now devoid of any personal inflection. This is no longer Rowan Hale, the abandoned child. This is Rowan Hale, the head of global compliance, conducting an active investigation. Your client's lawsuit is frivolous. We've established that. It's a legal ghost, based on a non-existent claim. But this, I gesture to the slide, this is tangible, this is active, and this is a crime, not just against me, but against this company and its shareholders. Alden Hale, who has been relying on his lawyer, finds his voice. It's a blustering, weak sound. You're lying. We started a legitimate business. You're just trying to ruin us because you're angry. Anger is not a compliance metric, Mr. Hale, I say. Data is. Let me walk this room through the data I found in the 72 hours since your shell company appeared in my system. I click. The slide changes to a simple timeline. T72 hours. Vendor flagged. My team's automated protocols flagged Quinn Field Services for the shell structure and the obvious name conflict. As I said, I immediately initiated an enhanced due diligence task. That task, Mr. Hale, began with a simple integrity test. I am now speaking to the entire room, educating them, but my words are aimed at him. We placed a bait order through the procurement portal, routed to Quinn Field Services, a standard diagnostic request. But with one intentional error, we requested a coolant refresh using specification 401B, which is the standard for our European data centers. The correct specification for the Midwest hubs is 8110G. It's a common error for new vendors, but one our internal system is designed to catch, reject, and force for manual correction. It's a test of the vendor's own compliance and technical knowledge. I look at Alden. How long do you think it took your new company to respond, Mr. Hale? A company with no operating history? He says nothing, his face slick with a new kind of sweat. 11 minutes, I state. Not a rejection, not a query, an acceptance. Quinn Field Services responded in 11 minutes, overriding the 401B spec and auto-substituting the 810G, using the internal procurement override code Alpha-771, an override code that is not available to any external vendor. It is known only to our senior procurement staff. The room is silent. My colleagues, the auditors, the finance team, understand exactly what this means. This is not just a red flag. This is a siren. This, I say, was no longer a suspicion. This was confirmation of an internal compromise. Someone inside Norcrest was colluding with this shell company. Click, the slide changes. T48 hours. Recorded contact. The next step was to establish direct contact. My lead investigator, using a monitored, fully recorded line, placed a follow-up call to the number listed on your vendor application. The call began, as required by state law, with the disclosure, this call is being recorded for quality assurance and compliance purposes. I see Alden's hand twitch. He remembers the call. On the call, Mr. Hale, you personally confirmed the technical details of the 8110G override. When my investigator, posing as a logistics manager, asked how you were able to bypass the system's quality control flag, you became boastful. I glance at the Norcrest General Counsel, who is listening intently. He knows what's coming. You said, and I quote from the transcript, "Don't you worry about the paperwork. The approval is a guarantee. We have someone on the inside. Our partner at Norcrest is handling the entire approval process. It's locked in." I let the words guarantee and locked in echo in the atrium. These are fatal words in my world. They are the language of collusion and corruption. A guaranteed contract. Mr. Hale? That implies you are not a vendor. You are a co-conspirator. You can't, Thorne sputters, finally realizing he is in a different courtroom entirely. That's entrapment. It is not entrapment. Mr. Thorne, our general counsel, David, speaks up for the first time, his voice a deep, authoritative bass. It is a standard vendor audit, initiated by a high-risk flag. Our head of compliance was doing her job. Please continue. Ms. Hale? I nod. Click. A new slide appears. It shows two simplified network diagrams. T24 hours. Access log. Cross-reference. The final piece, I say. Who was your partner? Who used the override code? The procurement file was e-signed by a Level 4 officer in our Midwest division, a long-term employee. Let's call her Employee X. I immediately placed a legal hold on her account and pulled her access logs. I point to the first diagram. This shows the login history for Employee X for the last 90 days. All logins originate from her home IP address in Chicago, Illinois, consistent, stable, secure. I point to the second diagram. This is her login history for the last 72 hours, the period during which your contract was guaranteed. The logins are not from her home IP. They are from a different residential IP address, 60 miles away, in Grayford County. I pause, letting the final piece of the puzzle slot into place. It took my team 15 minutes to cross-reference that IP address with public utility records. The service bundle for that address, internet, cable, phone, is not registered to employee X. It is registered to a Ms. Dana Cole. I turn and look at my biological mother. Her face is a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. She is no longer the crying but grieving daughter. She is a co-conspirator in a multi-million-dollar fraud. "You weren't just suing me, Ms. Cole," I say, my voice level. "You were at your house with a compromised Norcrest employee, pushing through the fraudulent contract for your husband's shell company. You were the someone on the inside." Click, the final investigative slide. Financial motive. Anticipated receivables. Why the rush? I asked the room. Why not wait for the lawsuit? Because the lawsuit is the motive. Mr. Thorne costs money. A frivolous suit like this requires significant upfront capital. Where did they get it? I point to the screen. It's a scan of a credit agreement. This is a UCC-1 filing, a $250,000 line of business credit, issued to Quinn Field Services by a regional bank. The loan was approved last week. And what was the collateral? What assets did this brand new shell company use to secure the loan? I zoom in on the highlighted text. Collateral. Anticipated receivables from a secured contract with Norcrest Dynamics. The room collectively understands. They took out a loan against the money they hadn't even stolen yet. They were leveraging the fraud to finance the lawsuit. It's a house of cards, built on the fantasy of my grandfather's money. When I had this, I say, the investigation was complete. I conferred with our general counsel. We immediately issued a notice of suspension to Quinn Field Services, freezing all pending and future payments. We suspended the credentials of Employee X pending termination, and this morning, I delivered my full preliminary report, with this entire chain of evidence, to the audit committee of the Norcrest Board of Directors. Thorne is pale. Alden is vibrating. Dana is just staring, mouth open. "You came here to shame me," I say. "You came here to demand $3.4 million us. But in reality, you are here to answer for a $2.2 million attempted fraud." My gaze sweeps the room. It rests on 3 men in dark suits sitting in the third row. They have been silent, watching, their faces impassive. As part of this town hall, I invited guests. We are often joined by our external partners to ensure full transparency. I'd like to officially welcome Mr. Harrison and his team from our external auditing firm. They are here today as observers. The color drains from Alden Hale's face. The only thing worse than being audited by the head of compliance is being audited by the head of compliance while the external auditors watch. I have them. The corporate case is airtight. The lawsuit is a joke. But I feel the weight in my pocket. The red USB drive. The corporate case is my job. This is for Walter. This is the final card. The personal seal on the corporate conviction. I step away from the podium. My footsteps are silent on the industrial-grade carpet. The chatter has died, replaced by a thick, anticipatory silence. Alden, Dana, and their lawyer, Thorne, are a frozen tableau of confusion and dawning horror. They are waiting for the next data point in my fraud presentation. This is not for them. I walk to the secondary AV lectern at the side of the stage. From my blazer pocket, I retrieve the red USB drive. It's simple, plastic, unadorned. It feels cool and absolute in my hand. I slide it into the port. The screen on the wall, the massive 80-inch display, flickers. The corporate flowchart titled Related Party Transaction, Fund Flow Mapping vanishes. For a second, the screen is black, a mirror reflecting the stunned faces in the front row. Then, The video file opens. The room, the sterile white lights, the brushed steel, all dissolve. He is there. Walter Quinn, my grandfather. The video is high definition, professionally filmed. He is in his study, the one in the small cabin, in front of the window that overlooks the apple orchard. He is wearing his favorite blue cable-knit sweater, the one with the worn leather patch on the elbow. His hands are clasped on the polished surface of his oak desk. The Parkinson's tremor is visible, a constant, fine vibration that he seems to be suppressing through sheer force of will. But his eyes are exactly as I remember. They are the eyes of an actuary, clear, intelligent, and utterly intolerant of inaccuracy. He is looking directly into the camera lens. He begins to speak. His voice is not the strong baritone of his youth, but it's clear, measured, and carries the unshakable weight of authority. My name is Walter Quinn. The date is October 11th, 2023. I am of sound mind, my body. He glances down at his shaking hands with a flicker of annoyance. Is proving to be an unreliable contractor, but my mind is, I assure you, intact. In the atrium, I can hear someone cough, a sharp, nervous sound. I have instructed my attorney, Miles Graves, to seal this recording. Walter continues, his gaze unwavering. This codicil to my will is to be activated and played in a public forum only in the specific, and I hope unlikely, event that a legal contestation is filed against my estate by either Alden Hale or Dana Cole. He says their names as if they are items on a balance sheet that failed to reconcile. In the front row, Dana lets out a small, strangled gasp. Alden, who had been staring at the screen in disbelief, now looks at her, his face a mask of rage. Walter leans forward slightly. They will have come to you with a story of a daughter's love, of a family reunion. They will claim I was old, that I was senile, that I was manipulated by my granddaughter, Rowan. A small, dry smile touches his lips. It is a smile of utter contempt. Let me be the last and only authority on this matter. The only manipulation in this family's history occurred 29 years ago at the Braxton Turnpike gas station. They left a 4-month-old child, my granddaughter, in a restroom. They left a note that said, "We can't." His eyes harden. I could, and I did. They will bring photographs, my grandfather says, as if he is standing in the room with us, watching their every move. They will show you a picture of Dana, as a teenager, with me. They may even show you a picture of Rowan, as a baby, from a shoebox I kept. They will use these images as proof of a bond. He holds up his own hand, shaky but firm. I, too, have a document. It is not a photograph. It is a court order, the termination of parental rights. They signed it. They willingly, and for a modest state stipend, legally and morally ceased to be her parents. I adopted Rowan. She is my daughter, my heir, and the sole beneficiary of my estate. He picks up a piece of paper, bringing it close to his face to read. The inheritance they are seeking, the house, the orchard, the investment accounts, the minority shares in this very company, Norcrest Dynamics, is the product of my life's work. It is not a prize for delinquent parents. It is a foundation for the only family I have. He puts the paper down. His voice drops, and for the first time, there is a tremor of deep, cold anger in it. Let me be unequivocally clear. For the benefit of any judge, any jury, and any public audience they have chosen to perform for, no one who has ever abandoned this child has the right to claim a single dollar from her. You do not get to throw away the seed and then return, decades later, to demand a share of the harvest. The law supports this. Decency demands it, and my will enforces it. The camera pans slightly to the left. A second man, younger, in a conservative suit, enters the frame. It's Miles Graves, Walter's estate attorney. Miles Graves, the lawyer says, his voice crisp. Attorney for Mr. Walter Quinn, do hereby attest that I am present with my client. He is lucid, he is under no duress, and he has expressed his wishes clearly and with full cognitive capacity. His understanding of his assets, his directives, and his beneficiaries is complete. The shot widens. A third person, a notary public, steps forward. She holds her stamp and logbook to the camera. I, Patricia Wells, notary public for the state of Ohio, do hereby confirm the identity of Walter Quinn and his counsel, and notarize this video affidavit as a true and binding codicil to his last will and testament. The camera zooms back in, tight, on Walter's face. The silence in the Norcrest atrium is no longer silence. It is a physical void, a complete absence of sound. I am aware of my own breathing. I can hear the faint, high-pitched whine of the amplifier. I look at them. Thorne, the lawyer, is staring at the screen, his mouth slightly open. He is a probate lawyer, accustomed to emotional squabbles. But this is a public execution. Dana Cole is weeping, but not the performative sobs from before. These are the ragged, gasping, ugly tears of a person who has been utterly and completely exposed. Alden Hale turns purple. "No!" he bellows. The sound shocking, violent. He lunges toward the podium, stabbing a finger at the screen. "That's a fake. It's a deep fake. That bitch. She made that. He was a sick old man. He was trembling. He didn't know what he was saying. This is a lie. It's all a lie." Thorne tries to grab his arm. "Alden, stop. She's a corporate criminal. She faked it." Before I can respond, before our general counsel can object, a calm, precise voice cuts through Alden's tirade. It comes from the third row. Mr. Harrison, the lead external auditor I invited, stands up. He is a tall, thin man with a face that looks like it was carved from granite. He does not look at Alden. He does not look at me. He addresses David, our general counsel. "Mr. David," Harrison says, his voice carrying easily in the hushed room. "As part of the materials provided by Ms. Hale's office for this quarterly review, my team was given this digital file yesterday for independent verification. We were curious about its inclusion." He holds up a tablet. "We have, this morning, confirmed two things. First, the file's metadata is intact, timestamped to the date Mr. Quinn specified, with no evidence of alteration. Second, and more importantly, we ran a SJ-256 checksum verification against the identical digital file, which was lodged as a sealed exhibit with the Grayford County Probate Court." He pauses, letting the technical terms settle. "The hash values are identical. This file is a perfect bit-for-bit copy of the one in the court's possession. It is not a fake. It is the authenticated, court-verified original." He sits back down. Alden Hale stumbles back, as if he's been physically struck. The air leaves his lungs. On the screen, Walter Quinn is still looking at the camera. He's finished addressing them. Now, he's addressing me. It's a contingency he planned for, the possibility that I would be the one to play this. His expression softens, just a fraction. The actuarial coldness recedes, replaced by the weary, profound love of the man who taught me how to count change, how to read a balance sheet, and how to be decent. "Rowan," he says, his voice quiet, for me alone. "If you are the one playing this, it means they did exactly as I predicted. It means they chose the lie." He leans forward, his shaky hands gripping the edge of the desk. "They will always choose the lie. It's their nature. You must choose the truth, no matter how hard, no matter the cost. Always choose the truth." My hand is on the mouse, resting on the pause button. I watch his eyes, the eyes that saved me. I click, the image freezes, locking him in time, strong, defiant, and right. I feel a single, sharp ache in my chest, a year's worth of compressed grief, released in one breath. I lean toward the podium microphone. The room is so still. My voice seems to fill every corner. It's barely a whisper, an exhalation, but the system catches it perfectly. I will. I take one steadying breath. The personal audit is complete. Walter's testimony is on the record. I turn back to the lectern. I close the video file. My grandfather's face disappears. I click the remote. The screen flashes, instantly returning to the cold, blue and white template of the Norcrest corporate presentation. A new slide appears. It is a complex, nightmarish spiderweb of LLCs, bank accounts, and internal Norcrest login credentials. The title is simple: Related Party Transaction, Fund Flow Mapping. I turn back to the room, to my colleagues, to the auditors, and to the three ruined people by the podium. My face is impassive. The head of compliance is back. Now, I say, my voice cold and clear, let's follow the money. My grandfather's face, frozen in time, disappears. The screen flashes, and the cold, blue and white spiderweb of the fund flow map takes its place. The whiplash in the room is palpable, from the raw human emotion of Walter's testimony to the sterile, analytical cruelty of a fraud diagram. This is my domain. Let's follow the money, I repeat. My voice is devoid of the whisper it held a moment ago. It is the monotone of an auditor. I use the laser pointer. The red dot lands on a box labeled Norcrest Procurement. The flow is simple, almost amateurish, I state. The compromised employee, Employee X, pushes the approval, the initial payment request from Norcrest, $180,000 for mobilization, is routed not to a commercial bank, but to... The red dot follows an arrow. Quinn Field Services, a checking account opened 6 weeks ago at a regional community bank. I click. From there, within 1 business day, the funds are transferred in their entirety to... The dot moves. Prairieland Solutions, LLC, the second shell. Click. And from there, 90% of the funds move again. The dot lands on the final box. Midwest Strategic Holdings, LLC, the parent company registered to Alden Hale. I click one last time. A new arrow emerges from Alden's box, pointing to a document scan. And what does Mr. Hale do with this anticipated, and now partially received, corporate payment? He uses it as collateral for a $250,000 line of credit, from which he immediately draws an advance that, according to bank records, was earmarked as a down payment on a new home mortgage application in his and Dana Cole's names. I turn off the laser. I look at them. You didn't just try to defraud my company. You used my grandfather's name to do it. You used his name, Quinn, as the vehicle to steal money, so you could finance the lawsuit that accused me of stealing his money. The sheer toxic circularity of the lie hangs in the air. Thorne, the lawyer, finally finds his voice. He is a probate lawyer, drowning in the deep end of corporate fraud, and he is thrashing. "This is irrelevant," he shouts, his voice cracking. "This is a smokescreen. This entire presentation, it has nothing to do with the probate case. It is slander. It is a malicious attempt to poison the jury pool." He's wrong. It has everything to do with the probate case. It is motive. It is character. But before I can respond, a new voice, deep and resonant, cuts through the room. David, our general counsel, who had been sitting silently in the front row, stands up. He is a tall man, impeccably dressed, and he does not look at Thorne. He addresses the room. "Mr. Thorne," David says, his voice like rolling thunder, "you are a guest in this building, a building your clients, as Ms. Hale has just demonstrated, have actively conspired to defraud. You used a public corporate town hall as the stage for your personal ambush." He turns, his gaze pinning the lawyer to the floor. "You, sir, made this a corporate matter. Ms. Hale is not slandering anyone. She is the head of global compliance, and she is presenting the findings of her investigation, an investigation you and your clients triggered. Every word she is saying is not just relevant, it is material to the integrity of this company and the interests of our shareholders. Now please, be seated, or I will have Norcrest Security escort you from the premises." Thorne, who is used to being the loudest person in any room, turns a shade of mottled red and, wordlessly, sits down. He looks at Alden with pure, unadulterated venom. He has been led into a catastrophe. I nod to David. I turn back to the lectern. We have the money map, I say. Now, let's confirm intent. I click. The screen changes to a simple audio file icon. As I stated, my investigator's call to Mr. Hale was recorded. Following all state disclosure laws, Mr. Hale was informed of the recording. He then proceeded to boast. I press the play button. The room fills with Alden Hale's voice. It's grainy, tinny, and sickeningly confident. Listen, the spec, the 401B, 8-sound G, that's just paperwork. You don't worry about the paperwork. The approval is a guarantee. We have someone on the inside. Our partner at Norcrest is handling the entire approval process. It's locked in. I press stop. The recording of his voice, bragging about the conspiracy, echoes in the atrium. Alden Hale looks as if I have just played a recording of his own execution. A guarantee, I say. Locked in. Our partner on the inside. I look to the back of the room, where Malik, my head of IT security, is standing. Malik, confirmation on the partner, if you would. Malik steps forward. He, too, is all business. For the record, Mr. David, Ms. Alvarez, he says, addressing the general counsel and the chairwoman of the board, who is watching from the front row. As Ms. Hale stated, the procurement account belonging to employee Elaine Davis was accessed 14 times over the last 72 hours, all 14 logins, including the one that used the Alpha-771 override code, originated from a single external IP address. That IP address is registered to a residential internet service contract in the name of Ms. Dana Cole. Dana, who has been rocking silently, freezes. She looks up, her eyes wide with the animal panic of a creature that has just heard the trap snap shut. Furthermore, Malik continues, per corporate policy 4.1a, access to corporate assets in event of suspected fraud. I was authorized by Ms. Hale to clone the hard drive of Ms. Davis's company-issued laptop this morning. A preliminary review shows a draft of the Quinn Field Services bid proposal, saved 3 days before the bid was ever officially submitted. Thank you. Malik, I say. I look at David. Mr. David, I have signed the authorization. The employee, Elaine Davis, is currently at her desk on the 38th floor. I believe this is a matter for HR and security. David nods, his face grim. He looks at our head of security, Mike, who has been standing by the door. Mike, take an HR representative. Escort Ms. Davis from the building. Suspend her access. Now. Mike touches his earpiece, nods, and he and another rep silently exit the atrium. The heavy glass doors hiss shut behind them. This is the moment. This is the pivot. The theoretical has become real. Someone is losing their job, right now, because of the two people standing in front of me. Alden Hale is no longer purple with rage. He is the color of ash. He looks at Dana, his eyes wide with a new, raw terror. It's the look of a man who has been outmaneuvered at every turn and has just realized he is in a trap he cannot talk his way out of. He sees the handcuffs. And Dana is broken. The tears are gone. The masks are gone. She's just staring at the Norcrest logo on the podium. She looks at Alden, and for the first time, I see them not as monsters, not as villains, but as what they are. Two profoundly incompetent, greedy people who have just immolated their lives. Their confidence is gone, vaporized. They have nothing left. I turn back to Thorne. You have one last, desperate-looking file in your hand. Mr. Thorne, I say, gesturing to the summons. The probate suit, the suit you filed on behalf of these two? Strangers. Mr. Thorne, I say, picking up my own copy of Walter's will from the podium. You seem to have forgotten the corporate fraud. So perhaps you also missed the last clause in the will you are contesting. You filed this suit. You triggered the video codicil. You also triggered Article 9, Section 4. I read directly from the document. Should any party contest this will and fail, and should that contest be deemed by the executor or the court to be frivolous or without merit, all legal fees, court costs, and associated expenses incurred by the estate in defending said will shall be paid in full. I pause, letting the words hang. From that contesting party's share of the inheritance. I put the paper down. As we have established, Mr. Thorne, their share is 0. The court has already validated the termination of parental rights. Your suit is frivolous. This means, Mr. Hale, Ms. Cole, you will not be getting $3.4 million. You will be paying my estate's legal fees. And I assure you, I look at David, our lawyers are very, very good. This is the final blow. They came for millions. They will leave with 6 figures of legal debt. A new voice, female, sharp and clear, cuts in. Ms. Alvarez, the chairwoman of the board of directors, stands up. All eyes snap to her. Ms. Hale, she says. Her voice is steel. Your report is thorough, given the evidence of internal collusion, attempted wire fraud, and the direct threat to this company. What is the recommendation of the compliance department? This is it. I am no longer the defendant. I am the executive. I stand straight, my voice ringing with the full authority of my office. Ms. Alvarez, my recommendation is threefold, effective immediately. 1. Formal. Immediate termination of the vendor contract with Quinfield Services and all its parent LLCs for cause. A full clawback provision will be enforced for any funds paid. 2. My department will finalize this report and transmit the complete evidence package, the audio recordings, the network logs, the fraudulent contracts, the bank records, and the UCC filings, to the proper authorities. This is conspiracy to commit wire fraud against a federal contractor. That is the jurisdiction of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. 3. Full internal disclosure of this incident to our employees and a transparent 8K filing with the SEC. We must, and we will, control the narrative. We will demonstrate that our internal controls caught this, and we will protect our shareholders. The chairwoman nods once. Make it so. She looks at David. Mr. David, please have security remove these individuals. David nods to Mike, who has returned and is standing by the door. Mike, please show Mr. Hale, Ms. Cole, and their counsel out of the building. They are no longer welcome on Norcrest property. The security guard moves toward them. They are wreckage. Thorne is stuffing papers into his briefcase, his hands shaking. Alden is numb. Dana is just gone. They begin the long walk of shame, past the 200 silent employees, past the external auditors, past the live stream camera. As they pass my podium, I say one last thing. My voice is quiet, but every microphone in the room catches it, broadcasting it to the entire company. And Mr. Thorne? He stops, but doesn't turn around. Regarding your lawsuit. I look at the backs of Alden Hale and Dana Cole, the 2 people who left me at a gas station. We'll see you in court. The boardroom ambush was just the opening move. The war was fought on 2 fronts, and I am a master of both. The Norcrest atrium, with its glass walls and stunned silence, was my battlefield. The Grayford County Probate Court, with its dark wood paneling and oppressive humidity, was Thorne's. He lost on both. 4 days later, we stood before a probate judge. The air was thick with the smell of old paper and floor wax. Alden, Dana, and Thorne were there, looking diminished without their corporate stage. Alden's cheap suit was wrinkled. Dana's eyes were red-rimmed and empty. Thorne's aggression had been replaced by a pallid, defensive sheen. My attorney, Miles Graves, Walter's attorney, the man from the video, handled the proceedings with the dry, precise competence of an undertaker. Your Honor, Miles began, his voice calm, We are here regarding Petition 33A9, Hale and Cole versus the estate of Walter Quinn. The petitioners allege undue influence and demand the will be nullified. We move for immediate dismissal on the grounds of locus standi, or lack thereof. He didn't grandstand. He didn't raise his voice. He simply placed two documents on the judge's bench. Exhibit A, Your Honor, a certified final judgment of termination of parental rights for Alden Hale and Dana Cole, dated August 14, 1996. The petitioners are, in the eyes of the law, legal strangers to the decedent. They have no standing to contest his will. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Alpert, put on her reading glasses. She scanned the document. She did not look up. She simply made a note. And Exhibit B, Miles continued, the authenticated video codicil, which the court has already verified from its own sealed records, triggered by this very petition. It confirms the decedent's full testamentary capacity and his explicit stated intent to disinherit the petitioners, whom he accurately predicted would file this suit. Judge Alpert looked at Thorne. Mr. Thorne, your entire case is predicated on your clients being the rightful heirs. This termination order, which your clients signed, seems to suggest they are not. Explain. Thorne stammered. He tried to argue emotional bonds, moral right, and the supposed vulnerability of an old man. He was arguing feelings against facts. It was a massacre. The judge held up a hand. The law is not concerned with the moral bond you're inventing, counselor. It is concerned with the legal one, which your client severed in 1996. I am noting for the record that the petitioner's standing is questionable at best. Then, Miles spoke again. Your Honor, despite the frivolous and malicious nature of this suit, which, I would add, was served in a manner designed to inflict maximum professional damage on my client, Ms. Hale is prepared to offer a path to resolution. I had instructed Miles on this precisely. It was not an offer of peace. It was a final, procedural checkmate. My client will not be countersuing for defamation at this time, Miles said. She offers a one-time settlement. The petitioners will withdraw their suit. With prejudice, they will sign a binding agreement, permanently enjoining them from any future claims against the Quinn estate. The decedent, or Miss Hale, they will also sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding all matters related to Mr. Quinn's will. In exchange, he paused, reaching into his own pocket. Ms. Hale will pay them a symbolic consideration of $1. He placed a single dollar bill on the table. Alden Hale looked at the dollar. His face contorted. It was the ultimate, final humiliation, all their planning, the fraud, the public scene, all of it reduced to a $1 buyout. No! Alden slammed his hand on the table. We won't! We'll appeal! She cheated him! She's a criminal! Thorne looked like he wanted to die. My client refuses the offer, Your Honor. Judge Alpert sighed. The sound of a woman who had just had her lunch break delayed. Very well, she picked up her gavel. On the matter of Hale and Cole versus the estate of Walter Quinn, based on the evidence presented, specifically the 1996 termination of parental rights, this court finds the petitioners lack legal standing. The petition is dismissed, with prejudice. Furthermore, I am affirming Article 9, Section 4 of the decedent's will. I am ordering a temporary assessment, pending final calculation, of the estate's legal fees to be paid by the petitioners. Mr. Graves, file your fee schedule by end of day. Gavel. Bang. They had refused $1. Now, they owed my lawyers close to 6 figures. But the battle was already over before we entered the courtroom. My war is won with information, and I control its release. The same morning of the town hall, mere hours after Alden and Dana were escorted from the building, the Norcrest corporate communications team, acting on my and the board's directive, moved. A press release hit the wire. It was a masterpiece of corporate ambiguity and reassuring strength. It mentioned no names. It did not speak of lawsuits or family drama. It read, Norcrest Dynamics confirms termination of third-party vendor contract following internal audit. Norcrest has ended its relationship with a new supplier. Quinn Field Services, after an internal compliance review, flagged significant violations of corporate procurement policy and potential conflicts of interest. The company's internal controls identified the anomaly, and a preemptive investigation is already underway. Norcrest is cooperating fully with the relevant authorities. It was clean. It was cold. It told the market, our systems worked. The head of compliance did her job. The threat is neutralized. Our stock ticked up 2 points. Simultaneously, I sent my own memo to the entire global staff. Subject: transparency, accountability, and our path forward. Team: you are all aware of the disruption at yesterday's town hall. What you witnessed was a failed attempt to leverage a personal matter against this company. It failed. The third-party entity involved, which had an internal accomplice, was identified by our own compliance protocols. That contract has been terminated. The employee involved has been terminated. We have referred the matter to the authorities. My grandfather, Walter Quinn, taught me that transparency is not just a policy. It is the fence that protects our honor. That fence held. Our system worked. Our integrity is intact. Thank you for your professionalism. We will have a follow-up town hall next week to discuss the lessons learned. Rowan Hale, head of Global Compliance. I didn't need to blemish their names in public. Thorne's frivolous lawsuit did that. The FBI, who were now in possession of my complete file on Quinn Field Services, would do that. I didn't need to smear them. I just needed the truth. The truth was, the $3.4 million was secure, untouched in the trust. The truth was, Walter's cabin was locked. The keys in my pocket. The truth was, from my 40th floor office window, I could almost see the direction of the orchard, where the first white apple blossoms were beginning to show, indifferent to the entire affair. I returned to my desk. The email from the court pinged. Case dismissed. The office was quiet. My team was already back at work, auditing the new vendor queue. I opened my calendar. I created a new event for the following week, a mandatory all-hands meeting. I sent the invitation to the entire global distribution list. The title: Town Hall Part 2, Lessons Learned. And in the subject line, for all to see, I wrote the final line item on this audit. Subject: abandonment has consequences. They came 3 days after the court hearing, after the public humiliation, and after the first preliminary inquiry notices from the U.S. Attorney's Office had been delivered to their home. It wasn't Alden who called. He was too proud, or too terrified. It was Dana. Her voice on my direct office line was a dry husk, unrecognizable. Ms. Hale, Rowan, this is Dana Cole. We need to see you. Please, no lawyers. Just us. I was silent for a long moment, long enough for her to start to panic, to stammer a please again. Third-party contact is to be routed through my counsel, I said, my voice flat. They're investigating us, she whispered, a crackle of pure terror in her voice. The fraud, the FBI, Alden, we can't. Please, 10 minutes. That's all we're asking. We'll sign anything. We just need to talk to you. I looked at the lessons learned presentation I was building. Very well, my building, 4 p.m., my terms. I didn't book a conference room. I didn't meet them in the glass atrium. I reserved room 39B. It is one of our internal investigation suites. It is windowless. The walls are soundproofed acoustic tile. The furniture is bolted to the floor. A single, heavy steel table and 3 chairs, 2 on one side, 1 on the other, on the wall, where a painting might hang. There is only a sheet of dark, reflective glass. Behind it, a high-resolution camera records everything. A small, polite, laser-etched plaque on the table read, "Interviews in this room are monitored and recorded for quality assurance and compliance purposes." When they were shown in by security, I was already seated. They looked decimated. A week of this kind of stress had hollowed them out. Alden, who had tried to project power in his ill-fitting suit, was now wearing a stained windbreaker. His face was puffy, pale, and his hands trembled. A pathetic mirror of the grandfather he had tried to defame. Dana was worse. The makeup was gone. Her hair was lank, and she wore the dead, thousand-yard stare of someone who has seen the full, unredacted report of her own future. They looked like what they were: small-time crooks who had accidentally tried to rob a fortress and pulled the entire army down on their heads. They sat. The silence was heavy, broken only by the hum of the ventilation. Alden tried to speak, his mouth opened, but only a dry click came out. He looked at Dana. She clasped her hands on the steel table. "Rowan," she began, her voice rough. We're sorry." It was the first time she had used the word. It landed on the table with a dull thud. "We didn't know," she whispered. We wanted what was ours, what was mine." "It was never yours," I said. My voice was quiet, but in the soundproofed room, it was absolute. "Look!" Alden burst out, finding a last, desperate surge of his salesman's bravado. He leaned forward, trying to create an air of conspiracy, of mutual benefit. "This has all gone too far. The feds, the company, it's a mess, for all of us. Bad PR for you, for Norcrest." I said nothing. I just watched. The camera was watching. "So let's end it," he said, forcing a smile that was a grotesque grimace. "Right here, we drop the suit. We'll sign a gag order. We'll say it was all a misunderstanding. The fraud stuff. We'll say Elaine, that woman from your office, she tricked us. We'll give her up. We'll give you everything." He paused, waiting for me to engage. I did not. "Just split it," he said, the words tumbling out. "The 3.4 million, 50-50, 1.7 for you, 1.7 for us. All of this." He waved his trembling hands. "It all just goes away. We disappear. Forever. Isn't that what you want?" I looked at him. After everything, the video, the court, the fraud investigation, he was still trying to bargain with the inheritance. He still believed that money was the only language. He still believed I was, at my core, just like him. He had learned nothing. I did not respond. Instead, I reached down to the briefcase by my chair. I pulled out 2 large, 9x12 manila envelopes. They were identical, sealed, with no markings except for a single black letter on each. One read, A. The other read, B. I slid them, side by side, into the center of the steel table. "This is not a negotiation," I said. "You don't have anything to bargain with. This is a choice. It is the last choice you will ever be offered in relation to me or my family." They stared at the envelopes as if they were bombs. I tapped the one marked A. Envelope A contains the settlement agreement my attorney, Mr. Graves, offered you in probate court, the one you so theatrically rejected. It is a full and final withdrawal of your lawsuit, with prejudice. It is a permanent injunction barring you, your heirs, or your associates from ever contacting me, my company, or approaching the Quinn estate, in perpetuity. It is a full non-disclosure agreement. In exchange for your signatures, the estate pays you the symbolic consideration of $1. I slid my finger over and tapped B. Envelope B contains the second complete copy of my fraud investigation. The original, as you know, is already with the FBI's white-collar crime division. This copy, however, is the personal one. It contains my notes. It contains the original digital hash of my grandfather's video. It contains the full, unredacted timeline of your actions, linking the probate suit directly to the conspiracy to commit wire fraud. It is the file that a federal prosecutor would use to argue for RICO charges. Alden swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. What's the choice?" "It's simple," I said, leaning forward. "You choose envelope A, you sign the settlement, you end this. The probate case vanishes forever. In return for your signature, envelope B remains on this table. I will not personally add my file to the U.S. Attorney's case. The corporate complaint will proceed, of course, but my personal. Involvement in your criminal prosecution will end. I stared at him. Choose A. You sign. You walk away with your $1, and you take your chances with the fraud you already committed. Or, I said, my voice dropping, you choose envelope B. You reject my offer again. You walk out of this room, and tomorrow morning, at 9:00 a.m., I will personally walk this file into the U.S. Attorney's Office and petition to be heard as an accessory witness, recommending your wire fraud case be elevated to a conspiracy and racketeering charge. I will recommend they add the emotional distress from the lawsuit as a sentencing aggravator. I leaned back. Choose? The silence in the room was absolute. The only sound was the faint hum of the HVAC and Alden's ragged, shallow breathing. The camera behind the glass was recording it all. Silently. Alden looked at Dana. Dana looked at the table. Alden's hand, the one with the dirty fingernails, lifted. It was shaking violently. He was trying to do the math, trying to calculate the odds. He was a gambler who had already lost his house, and he was being offered a choice between walking away or being shot. His fingers hovered. And then, his hand moved. It didn't go to A. It touched, just for a second. Envelope B. His fingers grazed the coarse paper. I heard it, a faint sound. The camera saw it, the hesitation. The part of him that was still calculating, still wondering if he could fight it, if there was an angle he'd missed. He was looking at the price of his greed, and for one terrible, damning second, he was considering it. Dana saw it too. She put her hand, her small, worn hand, on his forearm. It was not a gesture of love. It was a gesture of finality, a gesture of pure defeat. Alden, she whispered. Her voice was dead. Stop. Just stop. He looked at her, his eyes wild. He looked at me, my face impassive. He looked at the mirrored glass, as if he could feel the eyes behind it. He snatched his hand back from envelope B as if it were on fire. The breath left his body in a single, shuddering sigh. The gamble was over. The con was dead. Slowly, his trembling hand reached out and dragged envelope A across the table. I did not smile. I did not move. I simply pressed a small black button on the intercom panel built into my side of the table. Miles, I said, we're ready. The door hissed open. Miles Graves entered, followed by a corporate notary. They did not look at Alden or Dana. They carried the weight of the law, and this was merely an administrative task. Miles pulled the documents from envelope A. Mr. Hale, you will sign here, here, and initial here. Ms. Cole, you will sign here and here. He laid the pages out. I watched them sign. Their signatures, once a weapon they tried to use against my grandfather, were now just the pathetic scrawls of defeated animals. The notary pulled out her stamp. The heavy whump click echoed in the small room. Whump click. Miles pulled the $1 bill from the file, the same one from court, and slid it across the table. It stopped near Alden's hand. He stared at it, unable to touch it. This concludes our business, Miles said, gathering the signed pages. He and the notary turned and left. The transaction, from the door opening to the door closing, took 7 minutes. They were alone with me again. It was over. They stood up. The sound of the chairs scraping on the floor was jarringly loud. Alden, his face ashen, turned and walked to the door, his hand outstretched for the handle. He just wanted to get out. But Dana stopped. Her back was to me. Her hand was on the doorknob, but she didn't turn it. She said. Her voice was a dry rasp, so quiet, I almost missed it. You're Walter, our father. She stopped, corrected herself. Mr. Quinn, in all those years, did he ever mention us? It was the only question she had ever asked that wasn't about money. It was the last, desperate plea of a ghost, asking if it had ever been real. I thought for a moment. I thought of the long nights at the kitchen table, Walter balancing his ledgers. I thought of the line items. Loan, unpaid, and Dana, relocation. I thought of the silence, the decades of nothing. I owed her the truth, the same truth he had taught me. Yes, I said. She turned, just her head, a fractional movement, in her red-rimmed, empty eyes, a tiny flickering spark of something, hope, validation, a desperate need to know that her existence had been acknowledged. He said, I continued, my voice as cold and flat as the steel table between us, that silence is also a choice. The spark vanished, extinguished instantly. She understood. He hadn't spoken of them. He had noted their absence, an absence that was a choice, a decision, a moral and legal void they had created. Her face crumpled. She turned back to the door and followed her husband out. The heavy door hissed shut. The lock clicked, sealing the room. I stepped out onto the executive terrace. The glass door hissed shut behind me, silencing the hum of the 40th floor. The Grayford autumn sky was a sharp, piercing blue, so clear it looked brittle. The air was cold, stinging my face, but it felt clean. 41 stories down. The city was a silent map of movement. The wind pulled at my blazer, and as it shifted, it brought the faint, sweet smell of baked apples from the cafeteria vents 1 floor below. Walter's apples, the smell of the orchard. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A single, sharp ping. I pulled it out. The screen was bright in the cold sunlight. An email from Miles Graves. The subject line was simple. FW, court order, case 33A9. I opened it. The forwarded text from the probate court clerk was all of 3 lines. Petition dismissed. Fees assessed to petitioners. Dismissed. Assessed. I didn't smile. I didn't sigh. I just executed the next step. I tapped forward. I typed in the email address for the bank's trust and accounting department. I left the body of the email blank. The order was the only message. I hit send. I went back inside. My office was quiet. I sat at my desk and took the red USB drive from my blazer pocket. His voice, his proof, his final, perfectly executed contingency plan. I swiveled and keyed the code into the small, biometric safe bolted beneath my desk. The light flashed green. The heavy steel door clicked open. I placed the red drive inside, setting it on top of his digitized ledgers. I turned back to my monitor. A calendar notification was blinking in the corner of my screen. Meeting. Town Hall Part 2. Lessons learned. Starts in 5:00 minutes. The subject line I had written stared back at me. Abandonment has consequences. I looked at it for a long second, then clicked the dismiss button. The notification vanished. I looked up, past my monitor, to my reflection in the glass wall of my office. The atrium beyond was empty, waiting for the meeting. The face staring back at me was just my own. The eyes were clear. The tremor that had lived in my hands for a week was gone. I leaned forward, my breath fogging a small circle on the glass. I said it so quietly that it was just a thought. I didn't take anything back. I just kept what was abandoned. I turned back to the open safe and swung the heavy steel door shut. The sound of the bolt sliding home, a solid, final thunk click, was the only sound in the room. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you are tuning in from, so please drop a comment below and share your thoughts on the story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like the video, and support us by hitting that hype button to help this story be heard by more people.